This is not a complete dinosaur. It is a jaw fragment, a few vertebrae, a handful of ribs, and pieces that were damaged long before anyone found them. Some belonged to the same animal. Some only looked as if they did. The job was not to draw a monster from imagination. It was to decide which parts belonged together, which parts had been destroyed, and which parts could be rebuilt only as a careful hypothesis. By the end, these fragments will have to answer one simple question. What kind of animal could carry this skeleton through the early Jurassic world? The first mistake would be to treat every fragment as a puzzle piece with one obvious place. Fossils do not arrive in a box labeled head, spine, and tail. Bones are crushed, rotated, separated by water, and sometimes mixed with the remains of other animals. A vertebra can tell us where it came from by its shape. A tooth can tell us what kind of jaw held it. But neither one arrives with a complete set of instructions.
Reconstruction begins with boring-looking work, cataloguing, measuring, cleaning, and comparing. The drama is hidden in a question that keeps returning to the table. Do these bones actually belong to the same body? That question matters because one wrong assumption can travel through the entire animal. If a jaw fragment is assigned to the wrong skull, the bite changes. If a vertebra is placed in the wrong region of the spine, the posture changes. If a limb bone is borrowed from a related species without enough caution, the whole body begins to drift away from evidence and toward habit. A reconstruction is not just a picture, it is a chain of decisions. Each decision has to be strong enough to carry the next one. A skeleton can look convincing and still be wrong. A missing bone is not a blank space waiting for the most familiar shape. It is a test. If the jaw is too long, the tooth row no longer fits. If the pelvis is too narrow, the leg muscles have nowhere to attach. If the tail is too heavy, the animal's balance changes. That is why a reconstruction is revised in layers. First, the bones, then the joints, then the muscles, then the question of whether the animal could actually stand and move. The drawing is not the conclusion. It is a hypothesis that has to survive the next comparison. The first reliable shortcut is symmetry. Animals are usually built with a left and right side that echo each other. If one half survives, the other can sometimes be mirrored. That does not mean the missing bone is known in every detail. It means the reconstruction has a constraint. The vertebrae add another constraint. Their shape changes along the spine, from the neck to the tail. The pelvis adds another, because its surface records where muscles and ligaments were attached. A fragment becomes useful when it agrees with several other pieces at once. One match is interesting. 5 independent matches begin to look like anatomy, but symmetry is only a beginning.
Real animals are not perfect diagrams. Bones twist slightly as they grow. Muscles pull harder in one direction than another. Injuries can heal in strange ways. A fossil can be flattened by pressure until its original shape is almost hidden. So researchers do not simply mirror one side and declare the animal finished. They compare the mirrored result with close relatives, with growth patterns, with footprints, with joint surfaces, and with the physical limits of bone. The best reconstruction is not the one that looks most dramatic. It is the one that creates the fewest contradictions. The skull usually carries more information than a dramatic reconstruction admits. Teeth are not decoration. Their positions, shapes, and wear surfaces record how the mouth was used. Heterodontosaurus had a mixed tooth pattern, with small front teeth and enlarged canine-like teeth near the front of the lower jaw. That does not give us a complete menu. It gives us a set of limits.
The animal was not a miniature T-Rex, and it was not a modern lizard with a painted body. The jaw, the teeth, and the muscles had to work together. When an image shows a mouth doing something that the bones could not support, the image is the part that has failed. Those teeth also remind us that names can mislead. Heterodontosaurus means different-toothed lizard, but the name is not the explanation. Different teeth could be used for cropping, gripping, display, defense, or some combination of behaviors we cannot watch directly. The enamel, the wear marks, the spacing, and the jaw mechanics narrow the possibilities. They do not let us invent a full biography. A careful reconstruction keeps the uncertainty alive. It says, this is what the mouth could do, this is what it probably could not do, and here is the evidence that separates the two. A dinosaur's posture is not a pose chosen by an artist. It is a balance problem.
The spine, pelvis, legs, and tail all have to work around the center of mass. A tail that is too short changes the way the animal turns. A pelvis that is too upright changes the load on the hip. A foot with 3 toes still has to leave a footprint that makes mechanical sense. Digital models help here, but they do not produce certainty. They let researchers reject positions that would have forced joints through bone, or placed the body's weight outside its support. The useful result is not a perfect animation. It is a smaller set of movements the animal could realistically have made. This is where the reconstruction becomes less like drawing and more like engineering. The hip must accept the leg at a workable angle. The knee must bend without breaking the line of force. The ankle must carry weight. The toes must meet the ground in a way that could leave tracks. If the model looks exciting but collapses under gravity, the excitement does not matter. The skeleton is allowed to surprise us, but it is not allowed to ignore physics. Every living animal is a compromise between strength, weight, speed, feeding, breathing, and survival. Bones can tell us where muscles attached. They cannot tell us every detail of the skin. Color is even more uncertain. A cautious reconstruction keeps that uncertainty visible. It uses what the anatomy requires, what nearby fossils suggest, and what the environment makes plausible. Heterodontosaurus was small, lightly built, and built to move on 2 legs. It did not need a movie monster body to be interesting. Its real problem was more demanding. How do you turn a skeleton assembled from fragments into an animal that can breathe, feed, turn, and disappear into a fern forest without violating the bones underneath? Soft tissue is the place where temptation becomes strongest. A thin, fossilized bone can be covered with almost anything in a painting. Bright skin, heavy scales, display structures, scars, stripes, feathers, or spines. Some of those choices may be plausible, some may be pure theatre. The responsible version asks what the animal needed. It asks what related animals show. It asks what the environment would make useful. Then it stops, before certainty becomes fake. A reconstruction can be vivid without pretending that every color and every wrinkle was preserved in stone. The digital test is where a beautiful drawing can fail. Researchers can give the reconstructed skeleton joints, muscle estimates, and a center of mass. Then ask it to walk. If the foot rolls through the ground, the model is wrong. If the hip locks, the model is wrong. If the tail cannot balance the torso, the model is wrong. The simulation does not show us a film of the living dinosaur. It shows us which reconstructions are mechanically possible. That distinction matters. A successful walk cycle is not proof of one exact posture. It is proof that the posture has not immediately broken the animal. Even a successful model remains temporary. A new fossil can change the skull. A better scan can reveal a joint surface that was hidden under rock. A new comparison can show that a fragment was misidentified. Science does not bring the dinosaur back in one heroic moment. It brings the animal back in revisions. The first version may be useful. The second may be better. The third may remove something everyone liked because the evidence no longer supports it. That is not failure. That is the process working. A skeleton does not live in a vacuum. Plants, sediment, and footprints provide the setting in which its anatomy has to make sense. Heterodontosaurus was not a solitary monster wandering through an empty movie landscape. It lived among ferns, cycads, conifers, insects, and larger animals, in a world where a small body could be an advantage.
It could turn quickly, move through cover, and feed without carrying the energy cost of a giant predator. We can reconstruct the landscape with evidence. We can infer a range of behavior from the body. But we should not turn every possible behavior into a certain event. The honest version is quieter and more interesting. The bones leave several doors open. The environment also gives scale to the animal. A small dinosaur is easy to underestimate when it is shown beside giants. But small bodies solve different problems. They hide. They move through clutter. They need less food. They can exploit spaces that larger animals cannot enter. For a creature like Heterodontosaurus, survival may have depended less on dominance and more on speed, alertness, and flexibility. The bones do not tell us every chase or every meal. They tell us the body was built for a particular range of possibilities, and that range is where the reconstruction should stay. There are limits the bones cannot cross.
They cannot tell us the exact color of the skin from a fragment of vertebra. They cannot prove a single morning's route through the forest. They cannot show us whether this particular animal was old, young, male or female, unless additional evidence survives. Those gaps are not failures of science. They are the boundary that keeps a reconstruction honest. Every complete-looking dinosaur contains invisible decisions. The best ones make those decisions traceable. Found bone here, comparison there, a reasonable inference in the space between them. This is why the most honest reconstructions often feel less certain than the most popular ones. They leave room for doubt. They separate what was found from what was inferred. They admit when a tail length is estimated, when a muscle mass is approximate, and when a skin texture is plausible rather than proven. That honesty does not make the animal less real. It makes the reconstruction more useful. A model that can be challenged can also be improved. A fantasy can only be replaced. Start with a broken bone, add a second one, then a third. Compare their shapes, mirror what symmetry allows, test the joints against gravity. Remove the details the evidence cannot support. What remains is not a photograph of a lost morning. It is something more useful, a model that can be challenged, updated, and improved when the next fossil is found. The dinosaur at the end of this process is not the product of one artist's imagination. It is the result of many small constraints pulling the reconstruction toward the same answer. And if one new bone disagrees, the answer has to move. That is how a dinosaur comes back, not perfectly, but honestly enough to be tested. So the next time a complete dinosaur appears on screen, the real question is not only whether it looks alive. The real question is what is holding it together. Which bones are real? Which parts were mirrored?
Which missing pieces came from close relatives?
Which joints were tested? Which details are evidence and which are careful imagination? That is where the story becomes more powerful than a monster reveal. A fossil is not just a dead animal. It is a set of clues that can still argue with us. There is another reason this process has to be slow. Fossils carry damage that can masquerade as biology. A crack can look like a natural groove. A crushed surface can look like a muscle scar. A missing edge can make a bone seem shorter than it really was. Before anyone can ask how the animal moved, they have to ask, what happened to the bone after death? Was it buried quickly? Was it rolled by water? Was it compressed under sediment? Was it exposed, broken, and buried again? The animal lived once, but the fossil had a second history underground. Reconstruction has to separate those two histories without pretending the separation is always easy.
That is why modern work often begins with scans rather than spectacle. A CC station can reveal hidden breaks, internal structure, and pieces still trapped inside rock. A digital model can rotate a fragment without touching it, mirror a preserved side without damaging the original, and test several arrangements before any public image is made. But the computer is not a magic truth machine. It only makes the assumptions more visible. If the input is wrong, the model will be wrong, with better lighting. The advantage is that mistakes can be measured, saved, shared, and corrected. The reconstruction becomes a conversation instead of a frozen statue. In the end, the most important part of the dinosaur may be the part we do not see. The discipline behind the image. The restraint to leave a gap when the evidence is missing. The patience to revise a famous shape when a new bone disagrees. The willingness to say probable instead of certain. That restraint is not less cinematic. It is more powerful because it means the animal on screen is being pulled toward reality by evidence from many directions at once. And that argument is the reason reconstruction matters. It turns broken stone into a living problem. It forces every beautiful image to answer to anatomy, every pose to answer to balance, and every dramatic detail to answer to evidence. The animal does not return because we want it to. It returns because enough independent clues point in the same direction. Which part of this reconstruction should be tested next? The jaw, the legs, or the tail? The next fossil may change the whole animal.